I'm here with my friend Larry Burnett to talk about the benefits of having a greenhouse in a hot climate.
I'll share everything I've learned over the last 3 years dealing with a greenhouse in Arizona, which does have special considerations. I've been gardening since I was 7.
Wow, you can feel the difference when you walk in here in the humidity.
I knew the size I wanted. I knew where I wanted it placed. I do not get pests in here, which is so interesting to me.
I'm Angela from Growing in the Garden. This garden is in Mesa, Arizona in Zone 9B. I love sharing garden inspiration and helpful tips so you can be successful in your garden. So Larry, you have a beautiful greenhouse. What made you decide that you wanted a greenhouse?
I've gardened in warm climates. I've gardened in colder climates. In all of those climates, I've seen greenhouses be beneficial.
Okay.
From the traditional lean-tos, smaller greenhouses, to some of the polycarbonate greenhouses. I chose an aluminum frame and glass greenhouse just because of the durability.
When you're thinking about where to put a greenhouse in a hot summer climate, are there special considerations, or where should you put that greenhouse in your yard?
So I like it facing north and south. And I like the back of it facing south. So in the morning you'll get the east sun, which is
that morning sun that our gardens love. Yeah.
That gardens love it. Yeah. And it's not too hot. The afternoon sun is the west, and that's what I have to shade the most because that's when it gets hot. I also put it up against a block wall. It limits a lot of the light that comes down to the middle of it. It all comes in from the top. And then I put it next to a big orange tree that I have, kind of shaded from the north. So it's all about temperature control.
Temperature control, and so in other areas we might be putting it in the sunniest location to get maximum sunlight. But here we're trying to minimize some of that harsh sun.
Yes.
Great tip.
Yeah. And I would also say, if you can, put it on cement. And I've experimented with a lot of different things. Cement works the best by far.
A cement foundation for the greenhouse is helpful.
Yeah. And I can show you when we get inside, the layers that I put underneath it to make sure, that we get water control so it doesn't get too humid.
So this looks like a pretty good sized greenhouse. How big is it, and how did you decide what size of a greenhouse to get?
So this greenhouse is 16 by 20, 9 feet high. So again, the traditional Victorian style greenhouses have more ceiling room. So again, more sunlight, more space. And so I wanted something, again, that would be adequate. There are much larger, there are much smaller. This is really an average greenhouse, but 16 by 20 by 9.
So what have you done to the outside of this greenhouse to help modulate the temperature a little bit?
And that's the trick in Arizona, without a doubt. First of all, when I first put this up here without anything in it, I went in during the July and August months. It was 145 degrees.
145 degrees. So without any adjustments, that temperature got up to 145 degrees.
Yeah, remember what these greenhouses are for. They're to focus the sunlight and focus the heat.
And they did that.
And they absolutely worked. So I knew I had a little ways to go. First thing that I did was put an interior lining in, you'll see, which took it down about 5 degrees. I put a ceiling fan in, just to give circulation. Took it down another 5. I wrapped the outside with shade cloth, and in fact I have a double layer on the east side. That brought it down about 10 degrees. But what really worked, after a lot of experimentation, was to tint the top of the greenhouse. So I tinted it at 40%, and it still lets plenty of sunlight in for the plants, but that cut it down 30 degrees.
That's where you found your biggest difference. So tinting it 40% brought it down 30 degrees. Wow.
Yeah, the people that installed it were just astounded. They didn't think that it was going to be that low either. So it was a learning experience for both of us. So with all of those measures, the other thing that I've done is started growing some bushes on the west side of the greenhouse. Yeah, so starting at 145 degrees in the summer, which is clearly the goal. All of those measures brought it down to about 90 degrees. And then I put a swamp cooler in, kind of my last addition. Beautiful, inexpensive, I run it all the time. That brought it down to my goal, which is 80 to 85 degrees.
Okay. That sweet spot for plants that they love, that 80 to 85 degrees.
Yeah, and the humidity in here, I keep the doors, the humidity climbs to over 80% sometimes. So again, they love that.
All right.
They love the carbon dioxide, they love the heat, the cool, and they love the airflow.
Can't wait to get inside. Let's go take a look.
This is the swamp cooler that I was talking about. Very simple, very inexpensive. I make sure that we have circulating air, so this is a very high intense fan. I have another one here just to make sure that the cool air is blown against the plants. And then I have little fans on the plants themselves. The thing about these shade cloths that I loved, and the reason that I put them in, is you can open and close them depending on the temperature and the type of year. So you can see right now I have them clamped because we're just coming out of summer, but I've already started moving these over so that we can start to get sunlight in on the east side and the west side at the top.
So you're really regulating that temperature with the shade, similar to what we try and do out in the garden. I love it. So you've got some flexibility here and already having some of that sunlight come through and being able to move it over. I'm sure that's helpful.
I could put a plant right here without lights. I mean, I do have lights around here just because I think it encourages growth, but I can put a plant here without anything. It still gets enough sunlight.
So I can see you've got additional lighting, and so you use the additional lighting during the summer months, or do you use that year round?
The way I use this greenhouse most of all is to start plants. Just like you would in an indoor environment or in another environment, it's important to have light. I just keep them lit from 6 in the morning till 10 at night.
Because we're blocking a lot of that sunlight, so you are adding additional light inside the greenhouse.
And what I find is my starts now inside of this area with the high humidity and the temperature grow twice as fast. You can see I've monitored this very carefully. Because we have the door open and we're filming, the humidity has gone down, but typically the humidity will be between 75 and 80%.
So you keep the door closed to help that humidity stay up. Nice.
But yeah, my goal again is to keep it 80 to 85 degrees. You can see in the morning, it's the middle of October, and here we are at 60 degrees. You can raise that or lower that.
Tell me about some of the benefits that you've seen then from having a greenhouse.
So first of all, I would say the biggest benefit is everything's right here. I am so efficient when I come out here because I know where everything is. I have everything that I need. I, like you and others, have done a lot of stuff indoors. So I finally got kicked out. My wife had had enough. The other benefit that I've noticed is I use much less water in here. Humidity is so high that I have to water half as much as I do outside, so it's also very water efficient.
So they're happier with that higher humidity. Just like I was when I walked in, it felt so good. So I'm sure the plants love it. So we've talked a lot about the advantages of having a greenhouse in the summer. What about the winter? How does that help you to have a greenhouse?
Wintertime is all about protection for me, so keeping the plants protected. This temperature never gets below 60 degrees, year round, and so I never have to worry about frost. With this greenhouse, I'm really able to have 3 different distinct growing times during the year when I start a garden. So the traditional fall and spring gardens, without a doubt. I'm also able to give the plants in the summertime a big head start. One of the other things that I want to do, I've not done this yet, but you can see that I purchased the hydroponic system. Lettuce, spinach, cool weather crops, that don't grow very big. So I'm going to experiment with those, but ultimately I do want to get tomatoes in here, potatoes in here, and those kind of things. And again, I have plenty of room to do that.
Yeah, there is a lot of open area here, so you still can dream a little bit and make new. We're always thinking of the next thing and what we can do and what we can add.
I tried different foundations, the quarter minus gravel, bark, dirt, sand. I find that the cement gives it much better foundation. You get
the stability from the cement foundation.
The temperature, insects. When I had bark in here, I got a lot more insects.
Okay.
So I went with
because if you got insects in here, they would like it as well.
In this kind of environment, again, they don't. Because there's just nothing for them to hear or.
All right. So you've got the cement foundation.
This was layer 2, so it's rubber. There's a rubber product, but water absorbent, and so it just makes sure, again, with all the humidity in here, that you don't get pooling water.
Does it wick it away? Or
it does wick it away. It's very similar to what you would put in your home gym if you have a gym, just again to absorb some of the water and keep the water off of the other surfaces. So this is the first layer, and so I've got it completely covered. And then the second layer is a rug.
So I can see the rubber. Here's the rubber layer underneath, and then you've got this rug.
Yes. And you can see there is a little moisture here, but I'm very careful about that. I'll come in here if there's too much and just open it up a little bit to dry. Put the fans on the floor. But this is much less than it would be, without these materials, without these products. So I'm sure that there are other ways to do it. This has worked really well for me.
Now that you've had a greenhouse for a couple of years, is there anything that you wish you knew before you had started, or anything that you would do differently if you could do it again?
Yeah, I would do things differently, without question. It took me a while to get the flooring down, experimented with different flooring. Getting electricity in here, is not as easy as it should have been. That's a real consideration because you want electricity in here.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that. So tell me about how you got the electricity in here.
So I actually had to run a separate line in here.
Okay.
It was something, again, that I wish I would have done earlier.
So maybe run the electricity at the same time you're doing the cement foundation.
Inside the greenhouse, I've got 4 different outlets Each of them are GFI, and each of them, protect a certain portion of the greenhouse. And so I'm
Okay.
able to spread out the electricity a little bit better. The other thing is water. I did drill through the base to get the water source in here for the swamp cooler. What I plan to do ultimately is bring a drip system in, because I think that's what we need. You can see it'd be really beneficial along here. These are actually pretty easy to water. I've got a hose in here, but I do want a drip system so that I don't have to be out here every day, every other day watering.
Other than the plumbing and electrical, is there anything else that you do differently?
I don't think so, honestly. I researched this for years.
So you did your homework before you started.
really did
Love
my
it.
own. The other thing I've done, because we have high winds in Arizona,
Oh,
as you well
that's true,
know,
yeah.
is it's anchored into the concrete. It isn't going to go anywhere.
Well, thank you, Larry. It has been so informative to learn more about this greenhouse. It's definitely on my list. It might be a little further down than I would like, but I appreciate you showing us around.
Very welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. If you have more questions about greenhouses in hot climates, leave them in the comments below. If you would like to learn more, consider joining Growing in the Garden Academy. I teach a live online course every month about seasonal topics, and members have access to recordings of all past classes. Academy members also receive my garden journal, what I'm planting, harvesting, and doing in my garden, delivered to their inbox every 2 weeks. I hope to see you there.